Congratulations to the ancestor. The foundation establishment of the ancestor today. The gold core can be expected tomorrow. The prestige of the ancestor will surely spread all over the world. My ancestor is mighty. My Lee family will definitely go to the next level. In a continuous mountain villa covering an area of more than 10,000 mu, there is joy. There were constant guests, and all kinds of precious gifts were continuously brought up by the guests. Today is the day of the foundation establishment of the ancestor of the Lee family. Once the foundation establishment is completed, it is no longer immortal. In the eyes of ordinary people, a chi refining cultivator is already a fairy, and a foundation establishment cultivator is unattainable and extremely rare. The patriarch of the Lee family is a secular person, one of the few immortals who can come into contact with. Therefore, there are extraordinarily many visitors today. If you look carefully, you can also find a pattern. Among the guests who arrive, many of them have a young and beautiful girl by their side. Although the patriarch of the Lee family is 100 years old, he is a fairy. His appearance is only in his 20s. He is imposing and majestic, like a dragon and a phoenix among others. You have to behave well. If you can be favored by him, you can accept him as a young man. Concubine, our Hu family will be prosperous. At this time, a wealthy businessman dressed in a luxurious manner was admonishing his precious daughter. There are quite a few people who exhort their own daughters like him. The reason is simple. Among the immortals, the ancestor of the Lee family is a different kind. Immortals are different. Other immortals rarely appear in the secular world, and for the sake of cultivation, many immortals will not come into contact with women prematurely, and will even take the initiative to cut off their ties, let alone marry wives and have children. But the ancestor of the Lee family did the opposite. After becoming an immortal, the ancestor of the Lee family took concubines almost every year, sometimes even several concubines a year. Although the ancestor of the Lee family is already 100 years old this year, the ancestor of the Lee family is a fairy. Even if he is 100 years old, he is still more handsome than a teenager. Not only that, even if the ancestors of the Lee family have wives and concubines in groups, the ancestors of the Lee family treat every concubine kindly. Even if they can't follow them to become immortals, they can still enjoy the glory and wealth all their lives. At this time, the protagonist of today's banquet, Lee Su, was sitting at the top, receiving congratulations from the descendants. He is in a good mood. Although it took 100 years for the foundation establishment to succeed, but once the foundation establishment is 10%, the strength and status will be very different. Foundation establishment cultivator, the status of cultivating immortal world is already not low. At least, in the area where he is active, his status is already quite high. While repairing immortal world, many people have been able to call out, senior, respectfully. Another reason why Lee Su is in a good mood is that his children and grandchildren are all back today. Back then, when he first traveled to the fantasy world, he was still a 20-year-old boy, alone. Now, 80 years later, there are thousands of Lee Su's descendants. Among them, there are hundreds of Lee Su's children, and even more grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Thousands of Lee Su's descendants gathered together, filling the middle of the villa. The reason why the Lee family is so prosperous is that Lee Su has been taking concubines and creating people for decades. Over the past 80 years, Lee Su has taken more than 100 concubines. These more than 100 concubines, each concubine gave birth to several children for Lee Su. This is what makes the Lee family so prosperous. According to this momentum, in a few years, the population of the Lee family will be even more prosperous. The reason why Lee Su took so many concubines is also very simple. After traveling to this world where immortals and gods really exist, Lee Su is naturally unwilling to be an ordinary person who can only live for a few decades. He also wants to practice, and also wants to live forever and become a fairy and a god. However, his spiritual roots are so rubbish that they are next to nothing. Without spiritual roots, no matter how you practice, you will not be able to keep your spiritual chi. Even with resource heaps, it is impossible to foundation establishment in this lifetime. Not to mention, the resources of cultivating immortals are extremely precious. Where can Lee Su find resources to pile up? Fortunately, as a time traveler, Although God closed a window for Li Su, it also opened a bigger door for Li Su. He obtained the necessary gold finger for traversers, the system. This system is also a little weird, called the system of many children and many blessings. Every time Li Su has an extra offspring, his lifespan can be extended, and the cultivation base can also grow to a certain extent. Among them, the bonus of the first-generation offspring is the largest. For every additional son or daughter, he can add 1 year of life and 1 year of cultivation base. If it is the grandchildren, the effect will be halved, and the effect will continue to be halved for the great-grandchildren. Not only that, if some of his descendants have spiritual roots and can cultivate immortals, Li Su can also benefit from the cultivation of the descendants. However, spiritual roots are too rare. Among Li Su's thousands of descendants, only one descendant has spiritual roots, which is a relatively common spiritual roots. Generally speaking, if two immortal cultivators are combined, the offspring born will be more likely to have spiritual roots. The stronger the immortal cultivator, the higher the probability. It's just that many female immortal cultivators are devoted to cultivation and don't think about starting a family at all, let alone giving birth to offspring. Li Su wants to marry a fairy, and is even willing to give him the status of wife, but his spiritual roots are so poor, even if he looks good, which fairy would marry him? So Li Su's concubines in the past 80 years were all ordinary women. Although they are ordinary women, they are all as beautiful as flowers. However, even if Li Su has the system, there is no way to increase the lifespan of women. The only thing he can do is to treat these women kindly, give them the best life, let them enjoy the glory and wealth in their lives, and this life is worthwhile. Even though he has many women, all of these women are still infatuated with and grateful to Li Su till the end of their lives. Foundation establishment is 10%, but it doesn't take too many years to get to gold core. Li Su thought while accepting the congratulations from the descendants. The reason why it took him 80 years to complete the foundation establishment at the age of 100 was because it was not so easy for Li Su to take a concubine at the beginning. The system's requirement is that the person must be willing and have a good looks of no less than 8 points. It is easy to take a few concubines, but it is difficult to take in too many concubines. After Li Su reached the qi refining stage and became a fairy in the eyes of ordinary people, it became easier. Now, Li Su is not worried about lifespan at all. With so many descendants, Li Su's lifespan has already broken through 1,000 years, comparable to a nascent soul cultivator. But cultivation base is a problem, because the cultivation base rewarded by the system is calculated according to Li Su's spiritual roots level. Logically speaking, based on the number of Li Su's current descendants, Li Su's cultivation base is now more than 1,000 years old. Switch to a better spiritual roots, which is already above nascent soul. According to the level of Li Su's spiritual roots, the level of cultivation base of more than 1,000 years is also comparable to foundation establishment. In other words, if Li Su cultivates normally, he will be able to foundation establishment after more than 1,000 years of cultivation. This is enough to explain the rubbish of Li Su's spiritual roots. But spiritual roots is not impossible to enhance. In the multi-child multi-blessing system, Li Su has a way to improve spiritual roots. That is to give birth to offspring with spiritual roots. Every time Li Su has a descendant with spiritual roots, Li Su's spiritual roots will be enhanced a little bit. The better the spiritual roots of this offspring, the more Li Su's spiritual roots will be enhanced. Not only that, but the cultivation of this offspring can also benefit Li Su. But spiritual roots are too rare. Spiritual roots are extremely mysterious. Even immortals can't greatly enhance spiritual roots, and can't grasp the law of the birth of spiritual roots. Li Su now has only one offspring with spiritual roots. It is not easy to marry an ordinary woman and give birth to offspring with spiritual roots. But now Li Su foundation establishment. Even if Li Su is a 100-year-old foundation establishment, the probability of him marrying an ordinary woman and giving birth to offspring of spiritual roots is higher. In addition, the foundation establishment is hard to come by, and Li Su's current strength and status are not bad. Maybe she can marry a fairy in the qi refining period. Even if he can't marry a fairy, Li Su continues to take concubines, and the difficulty is even smaller. He takes more concubines, speeds up the speed of human creation, and can always give birth to some offspring with spiritual roots. His family is also constantly spreading branches and leaves. Although the lifespan and the growth of cultivation base are weakening with each generation, this weakening cannot be reduced to zero. Therefore, Li Su is still confident that he can reach the gold core stage sooner. Below, the congratulations of future generations are still going on. As Li Su Shuwei grew, so did the Li family's influence in the secular world. These descendants of the Li family all know that their current status and wealth are all brought by Li Su. If Li Su likes any descendant, the status of that descendant will be greatly improved. Therefore, each of them tried their best to please Li Su by sending out rich gifts. The congratulations and gifts from these descendants took most of the day. Then, it's the guest's turn. Wu Guo Guoshi sent a red jade bracelet. A long voice sounded. Master Wu. The guests were in a commotion all their lives. This is also a fairy, sitting in the mundane world. A ruby bracelet. Soon, Li Su got the bracelet. This bracelet is not bad, and it can warm and nourish the body when worn on the hand. She actually gave me a gift too. Li Su thought of a face that was always frosty. In the past, the other party was his senior, but after his foundation establishment, the difference in status with the other party is not too big. Immediately afterwards, in the Wu country where the Li family was located, many dignitaries sent congratulatory gifts, some even came in person. The whole villa suddenly became extremely lively. After the high-ranking officials and dignitaries, there are some wealthy businessmen who have business dealings with the Li family. Many of these wealthy businessmen bring their own daughters. Is that the ancestor of the Li family? Some girls looked at Li Su from afar and were attracted. In Wu Kingdom, there are many rumors about the ancestors of the Li family. No way, who made Li Su love concubines so much? Especially in the last 20 years, there have been a lot of concubines. But in the rumors, the ancestors of the Li family were very kind to their own women, and the other party was still an immortal. Although some girls heard that the ancestor of the Li family was very young, they still found it incredible that a 100-year-old man was actually younger than a 17 or 18-year-old boy. In addition, Li Su's appearance is really handsome, and some girls who were brought by their parents and originally had a little resistance in their hearts suddenly lost their resistance. Such an ancestor of the Li family, even if he becomes the other party's concubine, it seems that it is not bad. Old ancestor, this is my daughter Xiaoyue. Xiaoyue has always admired my ancestor. During the lively banquet, a wealthy businessman finally got the chance to meet Li Su, and quickly introduced his own daughter. Beside him, a beautiful girl lowered her head shyly. After close contact, Li Su's lethality to these girls is astonishing. Is the ancestor going to take a concubine again? So, on the second day of this foundation establishment celebration ceremony, Li's residence became busy. Because Li Su is going to take a concubine again. This time, I have to accept several at once. Li Su's descendants are all used to it, and no one dares to say anything. One by one, they all began to gather together. Even though it is a concubine, Li's house has higher standards than many wealthy families marrying wives. 8 sedan chairs are the most basic. Not only that, there is also a huge welcoming team, beating gongs and drums all the way. It's the Li family. The ancestor of the Li family seems to be taking concubines again. I really envy the ancestor of the Li family. He is 100 years old and can still marry so many beautiful girls. I heard that all the pearls in Linshui City have married him this time. So what if I'm 100 years old, I'm a fairy, and being able to marry a fairy is a blessing that I can't cultivate in 8 lifetimes. Along the way, the Li family's wedding party attracted the attention of many people, and many people started talking about it. This night, after Li Su took off the red hijab, he saw the girl's bright face like a flower. Except for immortals, no one is always 18 years old, but there are always 18-year-old girls. With a flick of Li Su's finger, the candle went out. It's going to be another romantic evening. For the next month, Li Su stayed in the villa, enjoying the beauty of the bridegroom every night. His current life is really a god and he doesn't want to change it. Should there be? After a month of hard work, Li Su felt that all the beauties he had recruited should already be there. So, after Li Su arranged things, he rode the horse alone and left the villa. Galloping all the way, it took 3 days for Li Su to come to an inaccessible mountain. Then, Li Su took out a handful of flying sword, carried his true energy, and stepped on it. Refining Qi late stage, you can fly with the sword. However, under normal circumstances, the cultivator will not choose Yujian during the Qi refining period to avoid consuming spirit power. After the foundation establishment, Edgeworth became the norm. But when Li Su first came to foundation establishment, he would save a little bit. After stepping on the flying sword, Li Su's speed suddenly increased, and he quickly entered the depths of the mountain. After flying for several hours, Li Su came to a seemingly ordinary place. He took out a token and injected spirit power. The token glowed, and a hole just big enough for one person appeared in front of it. Li Su jumped off the flying sword and walked in. Passing through this hole, the front suddenly opens up, and what comes into view is a towering mountain with spiritual qi lingering. Below the mountain peak, there is an extremely imposing mountain gate with 3 words on it: Feishenzong. Feishenzong. This is one of the fairy gates near Wu Kingdom, and together with the other 2 fairy gates, they secretly control several nearby secular countries. The national teacher of Wu Kingdom is the core disciple of Feishenzong. Li Su is also a disciple of Feishenzong. It is this identity that makes the Li family's special status in Wu country, so that they can develop smoothly. Li Su walked towards the fairy gate. It's senior brother Li. I heard that senior brother Li has arrived at the foundation establishment. A disciple of Feishenzong saw Li Su, his eyes lit up, and he hurried up to meet him. Congratulations to brother Li for the success of the foundation establishment. The disciple congratulated. Our Feishenzong has another foundation establishment cultivator. Immediately, other disciples saw Li Su and came over to express their congratulations. Although Li Su's foundation establishment is 100 years old, the cultivation of immortal world is based on strength. No matter how much time someone spends, the foundation establishment is the foundation establishment. Many spiritual roots are better than Li Su, and they may not be able to foundation establishment in a lifetime. Therefore, seeing Li Su's Feishenzong disciples, there is no such thing as ridicule. You let a qi refining period mock a foundation establishment period, isn't that funny? Congratulations to junior brother Li on the success of the foundation establishment. Junior brother Li's centenary foundation establishment is really not easy. Take this Guyuan pill as my congratulatory gift to junior brother. At this time, a foundation establishment student saw Li Su, walked over, and handed a medicine pill to Li Su. This foundation establishment disciple is only in his 40s, and his strength is already at the foundation establishment middle stage. Li Su's foundation establishment this time is also beyond the expectations of many people. This foundation establishment period disciple also seems to have the intention of making friends. Thank you, Brother Gong, Li Su said. Li Su's arrival didn't cause much commotion. Many Feishenzong disciples were practicing at the closed-door training, and not many were on duty outside. After Li Su chatted with the disciples on duty for some time, he went all the way to the main peak of Feishenzong. There is a magnificent Great Hall. Li Su came all the way outside the Great Hall. Please inform me, outer sect disciple Li Su, come to receive the foundation establishment reward. Li Su to the nuns guarding outside the Great Hall. That's right. This time Li Su came here specially to receive rewards. After the successful foundation establishment in Feishenzong, he can receive the magical item of the foundation establishment period, the medicine pill for consolidation, etc. These are all extremely precious. Soon, Li Su entered the Great Hall. It was very empty inside, and a woman in a white dress was sitting at the top. Head. Li Su saluted. This woman is the head of the Flying Immortal sect, a powerhouse of the Gold Core late stage. When she first traveled through time, Li Su met her who was injured and helped her a little. It was just like this that with a rubbish spiritual roots like Li Su, she was able to enjoy the treatment of outer sect disciples in Feishenzong all the time. The woman in the white skirt raised her head and glanced at Li Su. Then, she raised her hand and threw a small bag towards Li Su. Li Su took it and saw that it contained 5 or 6 medicine pills. I thought you would never be able to achieve foundation establishment in your whole life, but I didn't expect you to succeed in foundation establishment at the age of 100. These medicine pills for you should extend your lifespan a little bit. The cold voice of the woman in the white skirt sounded. Thank you, Master. Li Su said gratefully. I have ordered the refining pavilion to create a magical item for you, and you can wait here for 10 days. The woman in the white skirt said again. Okay, Master. Li Su said. The woman in the white skirt glanced at Li Su for a few more times, and finally said, cultivators are still less likely to be close to women, and less likely to form ties. Having said that, she paused again, because she thought that with Li Su's aptitude, after the centenary foundation establishment, she might have reached the peak, and it would be almost impossible to go any further. In fact, Li Su's foundation establishment at the age of 100 has greatly exceeded her expectations. So, Li Su can do whatever he wants. Maybe in a few decades, Li Su's lifespan will be exhausted and turn into a cup of loess. Foundation establishment cultivator, even if it reaches the 10th floor of foundation establishment, it can live for more than 200 years at most. Li Su may not be able to reach the 10th floor of the foundation establishment. So, when it came to this, she felt a little lost in interest, waved her hand, and lost the interest in talking. Master, this disciple is leaving. Li Su left here wisely. All he could think about was that if the head of the sect gave birth to a baby for himself, the probability of giving birth to offspring of spiritual roots would be high. But let a gold core late-stage cultivator give birth to a baby for him? For a long time, Li Su probably could only be dreaming. After leaving the Great Hall, Li Su came to his residence in Feishenzong, a simple courtyard. This kind of accommodation is not luxurious, but the location is good, and spiritual qi is quite ample. If Li Su wants to practice by himself, this position is quite good. However, Li Su has never practiced in the past 80 years. The efficiency of his cultivation is too low. He might as well cultivate more, do more exercises that are beneficial to both body and mind, and have more children. Li Su is going to wait for the refining pavilion to practice magical item here, and then leave Feishenzong. After staying here, Li Su welcomed some Feishenzong disciples who came to visit one after another. Senior brother Li, I didn't expect you to have foundation establishment. Alas, I probably won't be able to foundation establishment in my life. This night, a nun came to visit Li Su. There are not many female cultivators in Feishenzong. This woman was introduced by Li Su to Feishenzong, and she has a good impression of Li Su. However, although her spiritual roots is better than Li Su's, it's also limited, and she can't get too many good resources. The possibility of foundation establishment in this life is very small. Xiao Yu, give these medicine pills to you, I don't need them. After thinking about it for a while, Li Su handed a few Peiyuan pills among the rewards he received this time to the female cultivator. This female cultivator is called Ning Xiaoyu. Peiyuan pill is a medicine pill that is useful for the foundation establishment stage, and it is not easy to obtain a cultivator in the foundation establishment stage. For Li Su, it really doesn't matter. It's too inefficient for him to absorb it by himself. With the system in place, Li Su doesn't need to practice by himself at all. As for his descendant with spiritual roots, the other party is still a very young child, and it will be a few years before Li Su is ready to send him into Feishenzong. Brother Li, you can keep such a precious medicine pill for yourself. Seeing that Li Su gave her such a precious medicine pill, Ning Xiaoyu couldn't help being moved. But she didn't accept it, because these medicine pills are too precious. Peiyuan pill is useful for cultivators in the foundation establishment stage, not to mention cultivators in the qi refining stage. Seeing that Ning Xiaoyu didn't take it, Li Su grabbed her hand and forced a few medicine pills into her hand. Advertisement, Senior Brother Li. Ning Xiaoyu was immediately moved. At the same time, she was a little shy. It was the first time she had contact with a man at such a big age. She already had some good feelings for Li Su, but she suddenly felt that if there is no way to foundation establishment, it seems good to choose a beloved person to spend her life, or even form a family of cultivators. Some cultivators in the refining period will choose this way after the foundation establishment is hopeless. In the entire Wu kingdom, there are still some secret cultivating families. These cultivating families are not very strong, and most of them are cultivators in the qi refining stage. As long as they are willing to attach to the immortal sect and don't make trouble, they can live a relatively moist life. If a spiritual root's offspring is born, the whole family benefits too. Senior brother Li. Thinking of this, Ning Xiaoyu's gaze at Li Su softened, full of affection. Although she heard that Li Su took many concubines, but in this world, this is not a big deal. What's more, Li Su is still a foundation establishment cultivator now. As soon as Li Su met Ning Xiaoyu's eyes, Li Su understood her heart. He gently grabbed Ning Xiaoyu's hand. Let the cultivator in the gold core stage give birth to a baby for himself. It is not realistic at present, so let the cultivator in the qi refining stage give birth to a baby for himself first. Advertisement. Ning Xiaoyu trembled slightly. So, a few days later, when Li Su started his return journey, Ning Xiaoyu was beside him. Inside the Li residence, it was lively again. The news that the ancestor of the Li family wanted to take a concubine again spread throughout the surrounding area. It's terrible, the ancestor of the Li family accepted a fairy. However, this time Li Su is going to marry a fairy. Although Ning Xiaoyu is still a cultivator in the qi refining stage, her appearance is very good. In the eyes of ordinary people, she is indeed no different from a fairy. After marrying Ning Xiaoyu, Li Su worked day and night. A few months later, Ning Xiaoyu's belly grew bigger. Not only that, but the bellies of the concubines he had taken before also grew bigger. Li Su smiled. A few months later, several of his children were born one after another. Husband, at least the 8th rank spiritual roots. After the birth, Ning Xiaoyu couldn't wait to test the child's spiritual roots. Advertisement. Li Su already knew that he and Ning Xiaoyu's first child had not bad spiritual roots. 8th grade spiritual roots. You know, Li Su's spiritual roots are not included, not even miscellaneous spiritual roots. The birth of this child also greatly enhanced Li Su's spiritual roots. The number of your offspring will break through 10,000, you will get a 100-year cultivation base, and your spiritual roots will be enhanced to a certain extent. At this time, another good news came. During this year, Li Su's descendants also further increased. In order to increase the number of offspring, Li Su also encourages the offspring in the family to have more children. Every time the descendants have one more child, they will be rewarded by Li Su. Unexpectedly, if the number of descendants is large, they can also be rewarded. It is really a blessing to have more children. Century cultivation base. It would be great if my spiritual roots were stronger. Li Su has clearly felt that his own cultivation base has been enhanced again. Now he has entered from the first floor of foundation establishment to the third floor of foundation establishment. The effect of the century-old cultivation base is much better than before. After all, his spiritual roots have been enhanced to a certain extent. Soon, Li Su discovered that after the breakthrough of 10,000 descendants this time, there was a new change in the system of many children and many blessings. This change is that there is one more reward. Every time Li Su takes a concubine, he can get a Zuyan pill. Zuyan Dan does not prolong life, but it can keep youth forever. Looking at it this way, the rewards of the system itself will also change, but this change is based on the number of my offspring. Li Su thought. This system is called more children, more blessings, and it is true. The change of system rewards is not based on Li Su's own strength. After the Li Su Foundation establishment, the rewards of the system have not changed in any way. But the number of Li Su's descendants has broken through 10,000, and there is such a change. When the number of Li Su's offspring broke through 1,000, the system of many children and many blessings did not provide real rewards, but increased the majesty of Li Su. Let the descendants of the entire Li family have great respect for Li Su, the ancestor, and will not give birth to the slightest disobedience. Now that the breakthrough is 10,000, the reward is obviously better. Although it cannot increase the lifespan of women, it is not bad to keep them young forever. Zuyan pill is also available in immortal world itself, but the materials for refining are quite rare, and it is not easy to obtain, and it is also difficult to maintain eternal youth. The rewards of the system are naturally better. Moreover, after the breakthrough of 10,000 descendants, there will be such a change. The number of future generations will increase further, and there may be more changes. Nanming, the Li family's business can expand to the entire Wu kingdom. You brothers and sisters can discuss it and divide the territory yourself. In the main hall of the Li family, Li Su's faint voice sounded. Yes, father. Below, several old men in their 60s and 70s said respectfully. These old men are all Li Su's children. In this scene, the contrast is quite strong. The father, who is more than 100 years old, still looks like a young man, but his first batch of children are already very old. The sense of separation between immortals and mortals is clearly presented. In addition, the reward for giving birth is doubled. For all the descendants of my Li family, after marriage, they will have at least 5 children, and if they have more than 10 children, the reward will be doubled. Li Su said again. Yes, father. Naturally, they didn't dare to have any objections to their father's obsession with being a stranger. In fact, they didn't dare to raise any objections to any of their father's decisions, and would only obediently implement them. Take these medicine pills, they should increase your lifespan. Li Su distributed the medicine pill given by the head to these children. These children are quite capable in handling affairs, but they are getting old, and Li Su doesn't need these medicine pills anymore, so he just gave them. Thank you, father. The children were overjoyed, and excitedly took over the medicine pill from Li Su. After making arrangements, Li Su quietly left the main hall and returned to the villa. That's right. Li Su decided to further increase the rewards to encourage the offspring of the Li family to have more children. Of course, this also requires the Li family to further expand their business territory. Although immortal cultivators don't care about secular wealth at all, but the Li family is so huge, the descendants of the Li family are basically mortals, and they need secular wealth. Husband, why are you pregnant again? Ning Xiaoyu frowned. Her first child was only half a year old, and she was pregnant again. She also didn't think about it, since she gave birth to her first child and recovered. Li Su has been pulling her almost every day. How could she not be pregnant? She was the first fairy Li Su married, and Li Su naturally took care of her the most. Pregnant again? Li Su smiled, put his head on Ning Xiaoyu's stomach, and listened. Although she hasn't heard the fetal movement yet, as a foundation establishment cultivator, Li Su has already sensed the little life in her stomach. Haha, good. Li Su was in a good mood, pulled Ning Xiaoyu over, and kissed her hard. Seeing that her husband was so happy, Ning Xiaoyu loosened her frowning brows. Looking at Li Su's handsome face, a happy smile appeared on her face. Although I got pregnant again so soon, as long as my husband is happy. Ning Xiaoyu's second child was born again a few months later. However, the second child does not have spiritual roots. Even if there are 2 immortal cultivators, it is very difficult for each child to have spiritual roots. On the contrary, among Li Su's new concubines in the past 2 years, one concubine gave birth to a child with spiritual roots for Li Su. Although spiritual roots is not very good, as long as there are spiritual roots, it is very good. In this way, the Li family has 3 descendants with spiritual roots. These 3 descendants with spiritual roots, Li Su arranged a large number of maids and old mothers to take care of them, and when these 3 little guys reach the age of 12, they can be sent to the fairy gate. It's not good if it's too early, the body is not yet fully developed, and it's not a good thing to practice too early. Li Su's spiritual roots has also been enhanced again. Under Li Su's new round of incentive mechanism, the entire Li family has also added a lot of newcomers this year. Life. Give me a hard life. After not worrying about his own lifespan, Li Su decided to turn himself into a seeding machine and use some time to further increase the number of his offspring. As long as the base number goes up, 1 or 2 offspring with spiritual roots can always be born. In addition, the number of descendants increases, and there are rewards in itself. As a result, the frequency of his concubine began to become more frequent. After the Foundation establishment, many big families in Wu Kingdom wanted to marry their daughters to Li Su. The difficulty for Li Su to take a concubine was much easier than before. Husband, why are you pregnant again? Ning Xiaoyu was worried again. Immortal cultivators are not so easy to get pregnant, but Ning Xiaoyu seems to have a body that is easy to get pregnant. After the second child was born, it was not yet a year old, and she conceived again under Li Su's hard work. This is less than 4 years after being married to Li Su, and she is pregnant with 3. Sky. How can she give birth so well? Still no spiritual roots. However, after Ning Xiaoyu's third child was born, she still had no spiritual roots. For things like spiritual roots, it seems that there is no rush. In Wuguo, some cultivators are composed of cultivators in the qi refining stage. They are said to be families, but in fact there are only a few cultivators in them. Although there is no spiritual roots, Li Su is not disappointed. Every extra offspring can bring growth to his cultivation base. Husband, the rogue cultivators meeting once every 10 years is about to start, are you going? On this day, Ning Xiaoyu remembered one thing: rogue cultivators rally? Li Su has heard that this is a gathering held by rogue cultivators in several secular countries near Wu Kingdom. Wu Kingdom and several surrounding secular countries are jointly controlled by 3 immortal sects. Joining Xianmen is not easy. Spiritual roots are close, they can only be an outer sect disciple in the fairy gate. Once they haven't been diligent for many years, they can't even become an outer sect disciple, they can only be reduced to rogue cultivators. There is no way to do this, the cultivation resources are limited, and it is impossible for Xianmen to raise disabled people. This is how many rogue cultivators came to be. If Li Su hadn't been kind to the head of Feishenzong, he couldn't stay in Feishenzong forever. Ning Xiaoyu was able to enter Feishenzong because of Li Su's relationship. Li Su rarely participated in such rogue cultivators gatherings before. It's just a gathering of rookies, and Li Su's growth path is different from other cultivators. This time, after hearing Ning Xiaoyu mention it, Li Su became somewhat interested. After having a plan, Li Su arranged things at home. Not long after Ning Xiaoyu gave birth to her third son, she was not planning to leave the Li family, and it happened that she was in charge of the family. Xiaoyu, I'm going. So, on this day, Li Su rode a horse, left Li's house, and headed for the border of Wu State. Rogue cultivators gather in the middle of several secular countries, where there is a large area of no man's land. These areas are inaccessible, and often have some dangers, and mortals basically don't come here. After several days of running around, Li Su came to the border of Wu State. He put the horse in a post, stepped on the flying sword, and flew forward. The senior is going to the rogue cultivators rally? Not long after flying out, a Taoist figure came up from below and asked respectfully. Li Su took a look at the other party. This should be a rogue cultivators of the late stage of qi refining, and their strength is not bad. For mortals, they are also immortals in the secular world. The general acquired masters can do 1 against 10 or dozens. If it is an innate master, it is no problem to fight against 100 with 1, or even a few hundred. For mortals, an innate master is already unattainable. But even at the first level of qi refining, it is not something that innate masters can match. Li Su gave a faint, I happen to be going too, so let me lead the way for senior. The rogue cultivators felt the fluctuation of spirit power emanating from Li Su, and their attitude was surprisingly good. These rogue cultivators seemed to have never met Li Su. Li Su did not refuse, and under the leadership of the other party, soon, a highland surrounded by cliffs and difficult for apes appeared in sight. Around the highlands, sword ray can be seen leaping up from time to time. This is after some rogue cultivators rushed to the high ground, and then flew up with the sword. It can also be seen that some people are climbing up the cliff. This should be some innate master. This kind of rogue cultivators gathering, after some innate masters heard about it, they would often come to join in the fun and see the world. Senior, the Xianju Ridge ahead is where the rogue cultivators will gather this time. The rogue cultivators next to Li Su flattered. 2 sword rays charged towards Xianju Ridge. Flying with the sword at such a distance, this must be the senior of the 2 late stages of qi refining. On the cliff, an innate master saw two sword rays, showing envy and awe. As an innate master, his status in the secular world is not bad, but as long as he does not reach the chi refining period, he will always be fan. Immortal Absolute Ridge. Li Su landed on the high ground. This highland is very flat, covering an area of more than 10 square kilometers, with a length and width of about 3 kilometers. There are also some buildings on it, and it seems that this is the place where rogue cultivators have gathered over the years. Rogue cultivators are concentrated in the middle area. Some rogue cultivators set up stalls, releasing some of the treasures they collected, and there were also rogue cultivators in 2s and 3s exchanging some information about repairing the immortal world. The arrival of Li Su attracted the attention of many rogue cultivators. Although they are immortal cultivators, not every immortal cultivator is handsome. Immortal cultivators with such beauty as Li Su are even rarer. At this moment, Li Su is like an 18-year-old handsome young man, full of vigor, without the slightest trace of aging in his body. When some female cultivators saw it, their eyes lit up immediately. What made these cultivators even more concerned was that the spiritual pressure on Li Su's body was a bit strong. It's the ancestor of the Li family in Luoshui. I heard that he has reached the foundation establishment period. At this time, someone recognized Li Su and whispered, "Wow, foundation establishment period senior, no wonder he gave me such a strong sense of oppression. Why does he look so young? I don't know, it should be because of the beauty. Let's go up and say hello." He is a disciple of Fei Shenzong. Why did he come to participate in the rogue cultivators gathering? The rogue cultivators around the man were surprised when they heard what he said. Some rogue cultivators have already taken action and came to greet Li Su. The name of senior is known to everyone in Wu Kingdom, and everyone knows it. It is a great fortune to meet you today. On Xianju Mountain, Li Su is surrounded by rogue cultivators. I didn't expect the senior to be the famous ancestor of the Li family in my country of Wu. Please forgive Junior for being blind and not able to recognize the senior. The chi-refining late-stage rogue cultivators who brought Li Su here also said apologetically. Li Su was still in the chi-refining stage a few years ago, and the immortal cultivators in the chi-refining stage, even if they were disciples of the immortal sect, would not be so famous. Immortal cultivators in the foundation establishment period, if the other party is obsessed with cultivation and rarely goes out for a walk, they will not have much reputation among rogue cultivators. Li Su's fame mainly comes from the fact that Li Su, as a disciple of the immortal sect, stayed in the world for a long time. While other immortal cultivators cut off their fate, Li Su did the opposite, took concubines wantonly, and had a prosperous secular family. In addition to Li Su's 100-year-old foundation establishment, after several years of spreading, his name was known to a large number of rogue cultivators. Centennial Foundation establishment, in a way, will touch rogue cultivators even more. It also gave hope to some poorly qualified rogue cultivators. Li Su can reach a 100-years-old foundation establishment. If they persevere, maybe they can succeed. It's just a matter of hearing. There are still a small number of people who have actually met Li Su. Seeing so many rogue cultivators saluting to him, Li Su didn't hold it too high, and of course, he couldn't be too enthusiastic. He maintained the attitude that a foundation establishment cultivator should have. Occasionally, a gesture of response would make the cultivators who came to see him feel extremely honored. Why is it so lively there? It seems to be a senior from the foundation establishment period. I heard that he is the ancestor of the Li family in Luoshui. The ancestor of the Li family? The one who took over 100 concubines. At this time, not far away, a few female cultivators who came together saw Li Su surrounded by many rogue cultivators, and after a little inquiring, they found out Li Su's identity. These female cultivators were all curious. This kind of curiosity is naturally pure curiosity. The ancestors of the Li family stayed in the world for a long time, took in so many concubines, and could still be 100 years old. They were naturally curious. These female cultivators looked from afar and saw Li Su, who stood out from the crowd. "Why are you so young?" The female cultivators were taken aback for a moment. During the qi refining period, under the circulation of true energy, spirit power nourishes the body, delays aging and increases lifespan. But there are limits to this delay. Although Li Su is in the foundation establishment period, he is a 100-year-old foundation establishment after all. How could he still maintain such a young body? Not only does he look young, but Li Su is also very sunny, radiant, energetic, and full of masculinity. The years have left no trace on his body. Even Zuyan Dan and the like can't do this. Moreover, Zuyan Dan, which is useful to mortals, may not be useful to cultivators. This made these female cultivators a little suspicious. Is he really Li Sr.? That's right, he is Li Sr. Li Sr. is really good looking and has an outstanding temperament. He is no different from an 18-year-old boy. No wonder he can turn 100 to foundation establishment. Next to it, there is a stall selling some rogue cultivators who practice cultivation technique. After the female cultivators got the confirmation, their eyes would always focus on Li Su's body unconsciously. Before meeting Li Su, they used to hear news about the ancestors of the Li family, but they only listened to it. In the subconscious mind, the impression of the ancestor of the Li family is just an old man who is nostalgic for the world. Unexpectedly, seeing Li Su today completely subverted their impression. Their temperament and demeanor are exceptionally outstanding, and their appearance even hit their defenses. Let's go. Let's meet Li in the past. Seeing that the rogue cultivators were going to greet Li Su one after another, a female cultivator pulled her companions and said, "At the rogue cultivators gathering, it is rare to come to the cultivator of the foundation establishment period. It is very difficult to come to one, leave a good impression on the other party, and maybe get advice from the other party, which is very good. Even without pointers, it's good to leave a good impression. That's why many rogue cultivators came to see the ceremony." Soon, several nuns came to Li Su's side. Lu Weijia met Sr. These female cultivators are not very good at polite words, they are just simple greetings. Li Su nodded slightly in return. "Weijia, Li Sr. is too young, talking to him makes my heart pound." After seeing the ceremony, several female cultivators stepped aside, and one female cultivator whispered, "Me too, Weijia. Your parents are not planning to marry you into the Wang family, and you don't like that guy from the Wang family. In my opinion, you might as well marry Li Sr. I'm afraid I won't be able to reach the foundation establishment in my lifetime." Another nun nudged Lu Weijia lightly with her elbow and said. Lu Weijia's face turned red all of a sudden. Since meeting Li Su in Xianju Ridge, Li Su is like a walking hormone, attracting her attention. Although she hasn't thought of this level yet, she also has a good impression of Li Su. Now that this female cultivator said this, why didn't her face turn red? The blush is the blush, but the nun's words can't be lingered. It would be better to marry Li Su than to marry the fatty of the Wang family who has just refined qi. Seeing Li Su surrounded by many rogue cultivators like stars holding the moon, her heart beat faster. On Xianju Ridge, the rogue cultivators who came to see them finally thinned out. But one after another, rogue cultivators continue to come. This kind of gathering, exchanging cultivation experience, cultivating some information of a mortal world is one aspect, and the other is trading items, medicine pill or spirit stones. The medicine pill that is useful for the qi refining period, at this rally, if you are lucky, you can also trade some. As for the medicine pill in the foundation establishment period, basically there is no such thing. Foundation establishment pills that can help foundation establishment are quite rare in Xianmen, so it is naturally impossible to appear at the rogue cultivators gathering. On the other hand, it is to meet some cultivators, expand own network and so on. Li Su also turned around. This was the first time he participated in this kind of rally. "Senior, my daughter has admired Senior for a long time. Let my daughter accompany Senior to visit the assembly." At this time, a couple came up with their daughter and said to Li Su attentively, "It's from the Zhang family in Nancheng. The Zhang family seems to want to use their daughter to marry Li Senior. Weijia, if you don't act, you will be preempted." "Senior, they should be immortal cultivators from Siki Kingdom, and the group over there should be from Beiyan Kingdom." On Xianju Ridge, a pretty woman introduced to Li Su. This woman is called Zhang Yuer, and her strength is on the second level of qi refining. Her parents are a pair of cultivators in the qi refining period, and she also has spiritual roots, but the spiritual roots are not very good. Her parents seem to intend to use her to form a relationship with Li Su, and left her after leaving her by Li Su's side. There are quite a few rogue cultivators at the scattered immortal gathering this time, not only rogue cultivators from the Wu Kingdom, but also rogue cultivators active in 2 other secular countries. At this time, in the distance, another sword ray approached. Another Foundation establishment senior is here. It's Bai Senior. Bai Senior has been here several times. Some rogue cultivators recognized the incoming cultivator. Senior Bai is also a cultivator at the Foundation establishment stage, but he is a rogue cultivator. I heard that Senior Bai's aptitude was originally very ordinary. I don't know what kind of adventure he got decades ago. He made rapid progress all the way and finally succeeded in the Foundation establishment 20 years ago. Zhang Yuer was not very knowledgeable, so she introduced. From Li Su's point of view, this cultivator with the surname Bai, who was called Bai Senior by everyone, seemed to be much older than him. The opponent's strength looks good. After the other party arrived, they were also welcomed, and many rogue cultivators went to see them. However, the obvious difference is that even if the cultivator surnamed Bai came, the female cultivators on Xianju Ridge still mostly focused on Li Su. The same as the Foundation establishment cultivator, in terms of appearance and temperament, Li Su has to beat the Bai surname cultivator. In the Foundation establishment period, if there is no appearance and temperament like Li Su, many female cultivators in the qi refining period will not pay too much attention. I didn't expect the fellow Taoist to be interested in participating in the rogue cultivators gathering. I plan to recruit some rogue cultivators this time, and go to the Blackwood Forest to hunt and kill demonic beasts together. I heard that the fellow Taoist is a disciple of the Fei Shen sect. I don't know if the fellow Taoist is interested. I go together? After the cultivator surnamed Bai came, he quickly noticed Li Su and sent an invitation. Li Su shook his head. I'm not interested in hunting demonic beasts. Seeing Li Su's refusal, the cultivator named Bai didn't care. After politely cupping his cupped hands, he was surrounded by some interested rogue cultivators. For rogue cultivators, hunting demonic beasts in some special dangerous places is also a way to obtain cultivation resources. But this way is too dangerous, and they may lose their lives at every turn. There are many dangers in the Blackwood Forest, and it is very dangerous to go to the cultivator during the qi refining period, but there is a cultivator in the Foundation establishment period with him, and activities in the periphery may be rewarding. It's just that Li Su is not interested at all. He was going, not with this ignorant cultivator surnamed Bai, but returning to Feishenzong to find teammates or go alone. Senior, my little girl is taking the liberty, can I ask the senior to give us some pointers? A group of rogue cultivators who were exchanging ideas saw Li Su coming over, and they were still talking there for a long time. A female nun couldn't help but speak boldly. Advice? Although Li Su did not cultivate by himself, he still has some experience in cultivation. The cultivation base rewarded by the system is directly rewarded to him, but along with the cultivation base directly rewarded, there are also cultivation experience. This way of rewarding made Li Su's foundation more solid, as if he had really cultivated for more than 1,000 years. It won't be like water without roots and walls without foundations. In other words, Li Su's current knowledge about cultivation is equivalent to having more than 1,000 years of experience. Although his spiritual root sucks, the experience is real. Seeing some female nuns looking at him anxiously, Li Su cleared his throat, and began to point seriously. Ouija, let's go there. Lu Ouija and 2 companions also squeezed over. Soon, Li Su was surrounded by a lot of rogue cultivators, and the innermost layer of these rogue cultivators were basically female nuns. Some of Li Su's cultivation experiences are simple and profound, which made these rogue cultivators enjoy listening to them. Just because his spiritual roots is poor, his experience, to a certain extent, is very suitable for these rogue cultivators with the same gap in spiritual roots. Li Su also doesn't hide the fact that spiritual root sucks. After all, he was 100 years old, and it was impossible for anyone to think that he was a genius or something. So, soon, the rogue cultivators all listened with great fascination. Those nuns stared at Li Su intently. Some female cultivators stared at it. Not knowing what they thought of, their eyes often became unnatural, and their cheeks occasionally turned red. After talking like this for half a day, Li Su saw that there were more and more rogue cultivators around, and they were still fascinated by each one, so he had no choice but to continue talking. After talking for another half day, it was dark, and the surrounding rogue cultivators had already surrounded several floors. It's getting dark. Okay. Let's break up, let the senior rest first. Zhang Yuer didn't listen enough, but she still thoughtfully helped Li Su out. Senior's speech is really good, it has pointed out a bright light to me. Senior, please accept my worship. A rogue cultivators bowed gratefully to Li Su. The other rogue cultivators reacted and expressed their gratitude to Li Su in their own ways. Senior, here you go. At this time, a female nun stuffed a white handkerchief into Li Su's hand, and ran away blushing. When the surrounding rogue cultivators saw this scene, their expressions became quite meaningful. Zhang Yuer's complexion changed, because this kind of rogue cultivators gathering also has a hidden effect, that is, some rogue cultivators who have no hope of foundation establishment and want to find a Dao companion to form a Shuxian family are one of them at such a gathering. Chance. And once a female cultivator takes the initiative to give a token of love such as a handkerchief made by the male cultivator, it means that the female cultivator has recognized the male cultivator. At night, if the nun sneaks into the tent of the nun with a handkerchief, it will do a good job. Among immortal cultivators, sometimes there are not so many complicated etiquettes in the world. Not every rogue cultivators meeting can be successful. Generally, at a rogue cultivators meeting, it is not bad to be able to form a pair. This time, a nun gave Li Su a handkerchief in public. Ouija, hurry up. Seeing that a nun had moved, two companions beside Lu Ouija pushed her. Lu Ouija gritted her teeth, and finally, she also took out the handkerchief, stuffed it into Li Su's hand, and ran away blushing without looking back. Another one. The rogue cultivators around were all envious. The first female cultivator who gave Li Su a handkerchief was good-looking, and the second Lu Ouija was even more young and beautiful. Some foundation establishments were hopeless, and she wanted to find a male cultivator with Dao companion, not to mention how envious she was. But it's useless to be envious, who made them lack the charm of Li Su. Li Su is not only a foundation establishment cultivator, but also extremely attractive to women. It doesn't matter just being strong. The cultivator named Bai is also in the foundation establishment period. He has come to the rogue cultivators assembly twice, but there is no female cultivator to hand him a handkerchief. As immortal cultivators, some female cultivators will not compromise themselves even if the foundation establishment is hopeless. Yuer. What does this mean? After pulling Zhang Yuer aside, Li Su asks. He still doesn't understand what that means. Zhang Yuer was debating whether to hand over the own handkerchief. When she heard Li Su's words, she explained in a low voice. Is it okay? Li Su was taken aback. This time he came to the rogue cultivators gathering, he did intend to meet a few nuns and marry a few fairies, so that he could have more offspring with spiritual roots. However, Li Su did not expect that it would be so smooth. He seems to have underestimated the charm of On. If I had known earlier, when he had the late stage of qi refining, he might be able to marry a fairy and have a baby for him. Senior. If Senior likes. Yuer is also willing. At this time, Zhang Yuer beside her said in an extremely small voice. Yuer, when I send someone over, the Ming media is getting married. In the tent, Li Su said to Zhang Yuer. Zhang Yuer blushed, and gave a soft, In my heart, I also have more affection for Li Su. Because Li Su was not in a hurry to win her down, but was willing to go through the formal process, and Ming media was marrying her. Although the world of immortals and the world of mortals are two different worlds, many immortals don't care too much about common etiquette. But as a cultivator in the qi refining stage, and it is related to the lifelong event of On, after all, I still care a little bit. Now, seeing Li Su taking herself so seriously, Zhang Yuer couldn't help being moved. After talking with her for some time in the tent, Li Su took the handkerchief and got into another tent. In this tent was the first nun who handed a handkerchief to Li Su. Seeing Li Su coming in, the nun was too ashamed to speak, playing with the corner of her clothes, as if she was at the mercy of Li Su. Li Su sat down and his voice softened. Without saying a few words, the female cultivator's tension eased. Seeing that Li Su was willing to sit and chat with her like this, the female cultivator felt more affection for Li Su in her heart. In this way, after Li Su chatted with her for some time, this female cultivator named Shen Shui was even more deeply attracted by Li Su. In the beginning, she just fell in love with Li Su at first sight, and impulsively handed her own handkerchief to Li Su. After further understanding, she found that although Li Su is a cultivator in the Foundation establishment period, she is not as indifferent as many Foundation establishment cultivators, and she is quite patient and caring towards her. This made Shen Shui like Li Su even more. Even if Li Su does it to her now, she is willing. However, Li Su was still not in a hurry, but gave an own promise, willing to marry Ming Media. The concubine he had taken before, even if the concubine came from a poor family, Li Su was still married by a clear matchmaker, and he managed the marriage very well. Because Li Su felt that his own concubinage had a lot to do with the purpose of strengthening the Li family and using the system of many sons and many blessings to strengthen himself. Naturally, he would not treat his own woman badly. At least, let the other party not have any regrets in this life, and follow him without any suffering or grievance. After staying with Shen Shui until midnight, Li Su finally appeared in Lu Weijie's tent. "Ah! Senior." Lu Weijie sensed the movement, and when she realized it was Li Su, she exclaimed a little. "Among the three nuns, she is the youngest. You are so young, even if spiritual roots is close, if you can join a fairy gate, you may have the hope of Foundation establishment in the future. After you follow me, you can only stay in the Li family." Li Su came to the opposite side of Lu Weijie. Although it was very dark in the tent, it did not affect Li Su's vision. Hearing Li Su's words, Lu Weijie felt wronged immediately. Tears were about to flow down. "In this way, are your parents forcing you?" Li Su said. Although he hopes to marry more fairies with spiritual roots, the premise is that the other party is completely voluntary. Being forced by own parents is not considered voluntary. Lu Weijie shook his head and whispered about his family. Her family is also a small cultivating family. Both her parents are cultivators at the qi refining stage. Besides her, she also has a little brother with spiritual roots. Her parents want her little brother to join the Immortal Gate, but her little brother's qualifications are not enough. However, with the help of another immortal cultivating family, her little brother might be able to join an immortal in the Siki Kingdom. Door. Many of the immortal cultivators in these immortal cultivating families were eliminated by the immortal sect. Although they were eliminated, there are still a small number of immortal cultivators who still have some connections in the Immortal Gate. Especially some immortal cultivators at the late stage of qi refining. Even if the Foundation establishment is hopeless, they still keep in touch with some immortal disciples. That's why Lu Weijie's parents are going to trade her for her little brother's future. This is not because of patriarchy, more importantly, her little brother's qualifications are slightly better than hers. When repairing immortal world, spiritual roots is too important. There is no way, everyone has a limited lifespan, and the spiritual roots are close, and you may not be able to Foundation establishment in your lifetime, and even Foundation establishment is difficult, let alone continue to go up. Lu Weijie had no choice if she didn't want to marry, until today when she saw Li Su. She had a good impression of Li Su, and she wanted to get rid of the fate of marrying into the Wang family, so she boldly gave away the handkerchief. Hearing this, Li Su Ming understood. Senior, Weijie doesn't want to take advantage of the senior. If the senior dislikes Weijie, Weijie will leave now. If the senior doesn't dislike Weijie, Weijie is willing to follow the senior. After Lu Weijie finished talking about Own, she expressed her feelings in a low voice. She doesn't want to go back to the Own family anymore. Li Su gently grabbed her hand. This night, calm and not peaceful. The next day, the rogue cultivators rally continued. This rally usually lasts for 3 to 4 days. Li Su didn't leave in a hurry. Many rogue cultivators were still waiting for Li Su's advice. After Li Su stayed here for another day, he left on the third day. When he came, Li Su was alone, but when he went back, there was another person beside him. That is Lu Weijia. Lu Weijia didn't want to go back to the own family, so she left with Li Su directly. As for Zhang Yuer and Shen Shui, they are also from the small cultivator family. Li Su is going to send someone to propose marriage, and go through the formal marriage procedure. And like Ning Xiaoyu, who followed Li Su from the beginning, her parents had already died, and her relatives had nothing left, so she followed Li Su directly home. The ancestor is back. A few days later, Li Su brought Lu Weijia back to the villa. After returning, soon, the Li residence became busy. The entire Li mansion has a large area, and this villa is mainly where Li Su lives. The other descendants of the Li family all lived under the villa, in a city beside the Luoshui River. Basically, this city was filled with people from the Li family and a large number of servants and servants. Soon, the Li mansion was decorated with lights and festoons. The ancestor wants to accept the fairy again. This news also spread throughout the Li mansion and the surrounding areas. The Li residence is full of happy events. Yeah, I heard that the ancestor of the Li family took in 2 fairies one after another. Immortals are immortals. The ancestors of the Li family are over 100 years old, and their health is better than that of me, who is in my 30s. That's not right. Otherwise, how could the fairy marry him? In Los Angeles, the largest city around Li's mansion, when the huge wedding party passed by, it attracted many spectators. For the people of Los Angeles, watching the ancestor of the Li family take concubines every 1 or 2 years is also a rare and lively event. And whenever the ancestors of the Li family took concubines, the Li family would throw a big banquet. In addition to the normal guest banquets, the Li family will also hold a banquet by the Luoshui River. Anyone in Luocheng who is willing to join in the fun can go over and have a big meal. Many poor families eat the best food all year round, when the ancestors of the Li family were concubines. Therefore, in the vicinity of Los Angeles, every time Li Su took a concubine, many people followed suit. There are also many people who are eagerly looking forward to Li Su taking a concubine so that they can have a good meal at the banquet. After the Li Su Foundation establishment, the frequency of taking concubines has increased a lot in recent years, which made many people in Los Angeles very happy. In Li's residence, there were lights and festoons. This time it was Zhang Yuer who walked through the door. After the wedding, when night fell, Li Su entered the immortal cave. Zhang Yuer was sitting there nervously with a red hijab covering her head. She was a little nervous. Li Su took off the red hijab. Under the red hijab, the beautiful lady has a shy face. Her face is like a lotus and a willow is like an eyebrow. It's getting dark in the room, husband, I seem to have it. After more than half a month, Lu Weijia felt that she seemed to be pregnant. It is good. Li Su was overjoyed. For Li Su, the more descendants, the better. Li Su spent more time with Lu Weijia. Although he has many women, they are not like those in the palace, and they still engage in palace fights and the like. The relationship between women is still very harmonious. As the number of fairies Li Su marries increases, there will eventually be some differences between a few fairies and Li Su's other women. Actually is not saying that Ning Xiaoyu and the others are putting on airs, or other women are isolated from a few fairies, but that the world itself is different from ordinary people. Li Su's other women are subconsciously willing to focus on a few fairies. However, Ning Xiaoyu and the others are not very interested in managing the family's trivial matters, so the family's trivial matters are still managed by Li Su's concubines who have better personalities and deal with justice. Li Su even got started with a few fairies, and it became a good talk in the Los Angeles area. After Shen Shui passed the door, Li Su didn't plan to take concubines this year. Which concubine is pregnant? Li Su will spend a little time with each other every day. However, after Zhang Yuer became pregnant, Shen Shui and Lu Weijia did not get pregnant for a long time. Some ordinary women may be hit in one shot, but if they are cultivators, it may take more time. Li Su was not in a hurry either. After another half a year, finally, the youngest Lu Weijia finally had Li Su's child. In the second year, Zhang Yuer successfully gave birth to a son for Li Su. Husband, there are spiritual roots. After the birth, Zhang Yuer was overjoyed, because her first child with Li Su also had spiritual roots. Li Su was also quite happy. This child made Li Su have descendants of spiritual roots, growing to a total of 4. Another 2 months later, before Lu Weijia gave birth, Ning Xiaoyu's belly grew bigger again. Ning Xiaoyu didn't have to worry anymore, because she could see that the more children there were, the happier Li Su seemed to be. After being married to Li Su for so long as Li Su is happy, Ning Xiaoyu is happy to do it. Moreover, after the foundation establishment was hopeless, Ning Xiaoyu also wanted to have more descendants. If a genius with very good spiritual roots can advance by leaps and bounds all the way, and his lifespan will continue to grow, he will seldom consider the problems of future generations. Even if it is considered, it is often after the other party has grown to a certain stage. But many immortal cultivators who have no hope of foundation establishment have a limited lifespan, so they will naturally consider this issue. To a certain extent, future generations are equivalent to the continuation of life. Ning Xiaoyu's fourth child finally has spiritual roots, but spiritual roots is not as good as the first child. Li Su didn't care either, as long as he had spiritual roots. His spiritual roots has also been enhanced to a certain extent again.